everybody. Welcome back to another episode on The Black Experience, y'all. How's everyone doing? I hope everyone is enjoying their summer. I'm enjoying my summer. We are heading towards the middle of the summer, and it's been a great time. And so I hope everyone's doing well, staying healthy out there, and enjoying their time with family and friends and all. Today, y'all, I am back with another episode with a very special guest. This is a person that I have actually met recently through another connection. She is a mother of 5, a breast cancer survivor, a very successful business owner, as well as a WWU alumni. So let's put our hands together and let's bring up Mrs. Kena Brashear.
Thank you so much for having me.
Did I say your name correctly?
You did.
Yes. I was crossing my fingers.
Thank you for having me. This is a beautiful studio, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been an honor to honestly get connected with you through Mr. Russ Woodby. Thank you for the connection. And then
thanks, Russ.
You know, you got to give him props. His flowers. So, just like I feel like the more I get to know you, the more I'm just more and more amazed with the connections you have, and then also the work you've done in Bellingham.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, how's your day been from 1 to 10? Has it been 10 being super awesome, 1 being
I would say it's probably a 9. It's a good day. Sun's out, getting stuff done. Got up really early. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a good day to have a good day.
Absolutely. Yeah. Attitude, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It's how you see it. So,
yeah.
Awesome, Kena. So, yeah, but thank you for joining the podcast. I think this is a great opportunity for people to get to know you. That intro, I mean, when I was saying it myself, I was like, wow, the magnitude of who you are and your story that we're about to get into it's very big and very, it can get emotional for some people. So,
yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm a crier. I cry when I'm happy. I cry when I'm sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to let you know.
You can cry.
Okay, good.
You know. I don't think I've had any guests cry yet, but you'll be the first. But that's okay.
It might happen. Just telling you.
Awesome. So, yeah, let's kick it off. Let's start with, if you want to tell us a little bit about your background and what life looked like for you growing up.
Okay, so I was born in St. Louis, and my parents got divorced when I was 2. And my mom was trying to find the ideal place to raise a child. We didn't have a lot of money, and so we moved to Boulder, Colorado, and then we moved to Berkeley. And I love Berkeley. I felt like I really belonged there. I went to a bilingual preschool, so many brown people. It was wonderful. I loved it there. We couldn't afford to stay there, so my mom had heard of a tiny island called Guimas Island, which is across from Anacortes. And we moved there when I was 5. And so I lived on Guimas Island ages 5 to 14. Yeah. And it was an incredible place to grow up. Really wonderful, tight-knit community. I got to grow up on the beach, riding my bike all over the place. It was awesome.
It was a great time.
It was a really good time. And then I went to school in Anacortes, so I'd take the ferry every day to go to school. And then when I hit high school, I kept missing the ferry because of sports. And my mom said, we have to move to Anacortes because it just... So anyway, then I went to high school in Anacortes, and I ended up going to Western in 1990, mainly because of Ted Pratt, one of my good friends and mentors. He's one of the main reasons I chose Western.
Yeah. Shout out to Ted, too. Mr. Pratt.
Love Ted.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You know, he's been on the podcast before I was here, but he's amazing, too.
He is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So St. Louis.
Yep.
And then how did your mom hear about the small island all the way here on the West Coast?
She had a friend that knew of the island.
Gotcha.
And in her mind, she was thinking it'd be a great place to raise a child, right? It's not inner city St. Louis and a small area. And we moved so many times. We'd move into a house. My mom would fix it up. She was a skilled carpenter, painter. She worked on boats. She worked in restaurants. My mom had a huge single mom hustle going, which I greatly appreciate. Looking back now, think about everything that she did for me. And to her, it was just what she thought would be the best place to raise a child, and she made a very good choice.
Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah.
Was it much of a culture shock going from St. Louis to Guamish?
I was only 2, so I didn't really know. And I would go back to St. Louis in the summer times and spend time with my aunts and uncles and stuff like that. So I got to go back and forth between the 2.
That's good.
It was good.
It was the same way for me because Kena, I don't know if you know this, but I was born in Eritrea. So
I did not know
yeah,
this.
yeah. So small country in
Yeah.
East Africa,
Mm-hmm.
and I moved out of there when I was 3. So
Okay.
similar to you, I was pretty
Similar.
young,
Yeah.
but we went back once and then came back here to the States. So yeah, it was a culture shock, but you're just so young that it's
Yes.
more of a culture shock for your parents
Right.
who are like experiencing the most of it, you know?
Yes.
So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But that's a little small connection I just drew
Yeah.
right there.
I love that.
Yeah.
So good.
So so growing up, so you took the ferry. First of all, taking a ferry every day
Yep.
sounds so cool.
It was cool.
How was that?
It was so we had a little school bus. It would drive around the island, pick us all up, and it would drop us off at this little house at the ferry dock. And then we would get off our bus, wait in the little house. The ferry would come. We'd walk on the ferry, and it's a 6-minute ride, so it was easy.
Yeah.
After school, same thing. So back and forth, back and forth. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And my crew over there, I was one of the few girls on the island, so I grew up, and I still am a tomboy, like just tomboy all the time. Tennis shoes and just living my best life.
There we go. There we
Nikes,
go.
of course.
Nikes. Oh, we're gonna get into that.
I can't wait.
We're gonna get into shoe game, y'all. Get
Can't
ready.
wait to get into the shoe game.
I just had a wedding in Polsbo about a few weeks ago.
Yep.
And my friend and I, we were thinking about taking the ferry, but it got delayed. And so we had to wait either an hour for the next one
Yeah.
or just drive all the way around south.
Easier to drive around.
And we just did that instead.
Yeah.
So when you said ferry every day, I was like, so how many times was she late to school? Because
Well,
something happened.
So the Guimas ferry just runs from Guimas to Anacortes, and it doesn't stop anywhere else. So it's pretty direct.
Yeah.
And as we were the kids that were waiting, so we were walk-on passengers, so we never had to wait in line. So we always got on the ferry.
Wow.
And if there was, dry dock, the ferry would be out. We'd still walk across and go to school.
Yeah.
And if the ferry needed to be serviced, that would kind of change things. But we were late sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you get in trouble because back then the last ferry during the week was at 6:15, and I missed the ferry all the time as I aged in sports and trying to get to the ferry, and I walked everywhere. That life, the ferry life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you look back and you're like, those were such good memories.
Yeah, it's funny when you're growing up as a child, you think about your life experience, and you don't realize how great it was sometimes until you look back on it.
Same way.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. Like, especially when it comes to like school stuff, you're like, oh my gosh! Like, in the moment, I really hated this class, this
Yes.
assignment that I was doing.
Yes.
But I look back and I'm like, oh, it was actually a good time. Like the journey, the experience was worth it.
Yeah, and I was getting, as we were walking up here today, I was getting very nostalgic thinking about my time here at Western and how much I loved it. And I was here 90 through 95 and made some really good friendships and connections with professors, and just the campus is beautiful, so it feels really good to be back.
Yeah. Actually tell us about that a little bit. Because I was here from 2019 to now to 2024.
Yep.
And then a lot of my viewers, they've been here before that, after that, or about to, and around your time. Initially, I guess, what was the reason you came and chose Western, and then how was that time?
So when I was young, they had what was called the Minority Affairs Conference here at Western. So we would get on a bus and come up from Skagit County. So we'd pick up kids in Mount Vernon and Burlington and Anacortes.
Yeah.
There weren't very many of us, but they would bring us to Western, and then we could go to different tables. Eastern was here, Central was here. Everybody had a table, and Ted Pratt had a table. So you would come and talk to the different colleges about, what they had to offer as far as minority scholarships and everything. I connected with Ted. Ted always, he had a suit on. He was very polished, that voice, and he was just a machine and just such a loving, caring human. I honestly believe that in a lot of ways, having Ted Pratt as a mentor, I've had a couple really great mentors in my life, and two of them, Frank Muljat, who used to own Muljat Group, and then Ted Pratt, saw in me what I didn't see in myself. So Ted and I were talking the other day after one of the brothers' meetings, and he said, I always knew that you would be the way you are today. And he was just going on and on about how he saw that in me, and I didn't see that. I was very shy. I didn't know how things would go. So for me, being able to come up to this Minority Affairs Conference kind of helped me learn about different schools. And I was going back and forth and trying to figure out it for a while. I thought I was going to go to Wazoo. And then I loved Western. And I had a scholarship offer to Highline Community College for volleyball, and I declined it because I really wanted to come to Western. And I walked on the Western volleyball team in 1990. I tried out with about 40 girls.
Wow.
And I was one of 2 red shirts that they kept. And that was a really amazing experience for me to be able to play on the volleyball team for 1 year. After that, I couldn't continue to play because there wasn't a lot of money in the program and there was no scholarship opportunities. And I was working 2 to 3 jobs typically when I was in college.
Wow.
So I had to quit volleyball, but then I
Yeah.
just kind of dove into intramural volleyball teams.
There we go.
And it was
And just kill that
Oh,
side of the competition.
so fun. Yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah. The funny thing is, I had a classmate actually that was on the volleyball team this year in the spring, and I've done intramural volleyball. I
Yep.
never understood how to hit the volleyball or where to hit it. Like I knew the
Yep.
positioning, but
Yep.
I always thought it would hit you right where your thumbs are.
A
and
lot
then
of
someone,
people think that.
and every time I would do it, I'm like, bro, this is not working, man.
It's
And you're
just like,
like, you're holding it right though.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
well, then what's going on? Oh, it's got to
Yeah.
hit up here in your
Yep.
forearm a bit.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
That threw me off so many times.
Yeah, you're not the only one.
But I was gonna ask for coaching lessons, but
Yeah,
now I
no
know
problem.
I know
Yeah.
how to do it now though. So
Yep. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So what was how was Western in the '90s? Like, how would you describe it? I guess like on our walk here, you know,
Yep.
obviously some of the buildings like Old Main, the library, Haggard Hall, they were still
Yep.
there back then. But what are some of the differences and similarities, and kind of take us through that time?
So I was really, really shy when I came to Western, and I lived in the Fairhaven dorms. And coming to Western, it was a different time then. We're talking, house parties with DJs and a lot of connection. And when I was brand new on campus, I met a guy named Marian, and he came up to me and he told me about BSU, and I was like, okay, this will be great to kind of connect with people and get to know people. I had volleyball practice that ran late. I didn't go to BSU when he invited me. And back in the day, we had these like big, huge boards on our doors on the dorm so people could write you notes before texting and all of that. And all he did was he wrote on my door, "Why weren't you at BSU, lady?" And I was like, okay, I need to get to BSU. So it was super cool to connect with people through BSU, people through volleyball, intramural sports, different jobs that I had. And it was a really different time. I mean, I love the people that I met when I was here, and I'm still in touch with some of my professors. And I tell my kids all the time, because it feels right now, the 80s and 90s fashion is coming back, and music, and my kids are always asking questions, especially my 15-year-old and my 12-year-old. And they're, my daughter, she's wearing the Vans and baggy shoes, she's very much an 80s, 90s girl, and my son is the same way, the Jordan jerseys, all of it, right? And I was telling them, I said, there will never be another time like the 70s and 80s and 90s. And growing up in that era, 70s, 80s, and 90s was the most amazing thing I think you could ever experience. Before cell phones, before social media. It's dark, you're supposed to be home when it's dark, right? There wasn't all of this, cyberbullying and all the things that my kids go through that were not even on my radar.
They weren't a thing. No way.
It was not a thing.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, technology is good in a lot of ways, but in other ways it can be harmful, right? And kids want to be on their devices and looking down and not interacting. And I feel like some of my best family time is when I'm like, okay, phone's up. It's time for us to just connect and talk. And I do it sometimes when I'm with my kids in the car. But I don't know. I get so happy when I think about certain parts of my life in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And during that time, I don't know if I fully appreciated it. But now I look back and think, wow, that was an amazing thing. Yeah.
I always see on Facebook and then also on YouTube where people are posting their pictures from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and they're like, what a time, like the best ever. And part of me is kind of like, dang, I kind of wish I grew up to see if what they're saying has merit, you know what I mean? But at the same time, too, I can see how, because my childhood was kind of early 2000s, so kind of right before everyone was really, really on their phones.
Yep,
so
that's
I kind
a
of
good time too, though.
yeah. So baggy clothing and everything, all that stuff. But I see what you mean, though. Yeah, absolutely. Did you have a favorite decade between those three?
I would say the 80s were probably my favorite.
Was it the music?
Music. And 90s R&B is hands down my favorite music, still to this day. I mean, I love 90s R&B and old school 90s rap. Like Tupac, Dr. Dre, Blackstreet, Snoop Dogg, Warren
Public
G,
Enemy,
NWA, like all of these groups that time is gone. sometimes when I'm listening to newer rap, I'm like, I don't even know what they're saying. It doesn't even make any sense. And all I hear is auto tune, auto tune, auto tune. I mean, we do have some good artists that have come out. Like Kendrick Lamar is amazing.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love Kendrick. So that's good. But back then, it was just a different time, and just the high notes in the music and the beat drop and the bass and
Yeah.
love it.
And speaking of the 80s too, you grew up with my favorite athlete, Michael Jordan.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. I mean,
Oh,
you came to
yeah.
Western in that
Yes.
first three-peat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Describe that time.
Oh, so our company had seats at the Sonics games, and they were almost courtside. They
Yeah.
were beautiful seats. So during the early 2000s, I mean, when I saw the Bulls play, I was able to sit down low, and I could hear Gary Payton talking. That's the best experience ever. If you ask anybody about Gary Payton and his role in basketball, Shaq always says, like, he talks the most smack and could get in your head more than anybody else. And growing up in that era and watching what Michael Jordan did with the shoe industry and negotiating splits on shoe sales, and look what he did for all of the other athletes that followed him for the shoe game, right? It was, and Emmitt Smith was my other favorite athlete during that time, favorite running back of all time. I was not a huge Cowboys fan, but I loved Emmitt Smith as a running back, Deion Sanders. Just watching those athletes back then, it was amazing.
It was something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say then, like, because you're wearing, I don't know if y'all can see it, but you're wearing some dope Nikes, some Air Maxes right
Air
now.
Max 90s, yeah.
With a little established 1990, you know, I thought they were custom made initially when I saw them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the 80s and 90s kind of shaped the fashion trend that's kind of kept going to this day for you.
It's true. Yeah. And I have always loved shoes. When I was younger, I would have to scrimp and save to be able to buy Nike shoes. And now I love being able to give my kids the gift of being able to have Nike shoes. And Jordans have always been my favorite. I love Air Max 90s are one of my favorite shoes. And then Jordans, I love 1s, 3s, 4s, 11s. Like there's certain shoes and it brings back a memory. So like Jordan 4s came out when I was junior, senior in high school, and how cool they were. And watching the guys in the basketball team wearing Jordan 4s.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of memories that go with everything in life, but it's funny to think back on the shoes and what you were wearing in the 80s and 90s and how fashion trends are coming back. And
yeah. It's kind of like kind of similar to that, but I look at my Spotify like songs and I go back and I see the date when I liked each song, and each group of song is associated with a certain season I was like. 2021 was my sophomore year, 22 my fourth year, and then 23, 24 now my senior year. So it's like I see the association you're talking about.
It's so great.
Nostalgia.
It's the nostalgia. And I go back to, I played a lot of women's softball and co-ed softball as well. And I had this toter that I found in my basement. Back in the day, we used to burn CDs. So you would go on Napster and LimeWire or whatever, download the song, and then put it on a CD and make it. So I made this CD for our whole softball team, and I found a bunch of the CDs, and I was like, this is amazing. And then tapes, I found a bunch of my old tapes from high school, mixtapes, and then we would record the radio, you know. Different times.
Yeah, different times. Man, now I want to go back to the 80s.
I know.
We need a time machine. That's what we need.
We do need a time machine. I would love to go back to the 80s. Ooh, good times.
One more thing before we move on.
Yeah.
You know, seeing, let's say, people like Emmitt Smith, Michael Jordan. I mean, these are black athletes that are reaching their peak, that are successful, they're global. How did that impact your self-esteem and the kind of the way you saw yourself in the black community?
As far as sports?
As far as sports, but also as far as just being successful in whatever endeavor.
It was really great for me as a kid to have role models. I played a lot of sports. I played basketball up until 8th grade, and then I played volleyball, softball, ran track, and I was an athletic kid, and that was a way for me to express myself. And I kind of came out of my shyness bubble when I started making varsity teams when I was young, and I was like, okay, go to camp every year, you know, sports camps and stuff like that. And I was pretty deeply impacted by people like that made it, who looked like me, right? I remember back in the day there was this model, a mixed model that made it, and she was on the cover of Elle magazine. I'm like, this is the coolest thing. And I found the magazine in my college toter. I had saved it all these years because I thought it was so neat that she was on the cover. So having people like that and see them achieve great success was huge for me. I mean, I don't even know how to describe the feeling that it gave me. And to watch people like, you know, Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders also, and the way he stepped away from football, but people that were very collected. Ray Allen was one of my favorite basketball players of all time. He would just go out and do his job and not say anything. He wasn't flashy, you know, and so it was fun for me to just watch all those people. And then I used to watch Sports Center all the time and the Sports Center highlights. Stuart Scott was one of my
Rest in
favorite
peace.
announcers. I loved that
I
man.
love him too, man.
Yeah, I always quote him.
Especially
you
the
know.
top 10 that he would do, like I think it was like every night.
Yes.
Top 10 highlights and just hearing his
Yes.
voice and the glasses
Yes.
and
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
it was pretty cool to watch just that whole thing and the whole generation of it all. But it's watching black athletes really make it, and watching what Michael Jordan did for the shoe game.
Oh man.
For me, that's a game changer to see that. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he's still doing it. I mean, he's been retired
is.
for more than 20 years and
Yeah.
his shoes are still outselling anyone else's.
I know. I'm always, I look at people like LeBron James, right? And, he has his shoe deal because of Michael Jordan. He needs to remember that. He wouldn't have that if Michael Jordan hadn't paved the way.
No.
Because I just get kind of like,
And I like LeBron too. Look, I grew up watching LeBron and Kobe, but
yeah.
I was born in 2000. Oh, Kobe. Oh
Kobe.
my gosh.
I'm not a huge LeBron fan, but I love Kobe. Yeah.
Were you devastated when he passed?
Yeah. And my business partner Peter is Kobe obsessed. He grew up in LA. And he actually has a Kobe shoe collection, and he gave my son a pair of Kobe shoes. It was actually at his retirement party when he retired from the Air Force. I'm like, this is the most amazing thing you could do to give somebody these shoes. But he bought them when they were rack prices because he just has been into Kobe since he's a day one Kobe fan.
Yeah. No, us Jordan fans respect Kobe fans.
Yeah.
Because if there was someone to be Michael Jordan one-on-one, I mean, Michael Jordan said himself, it would be Kobe.
It would be Kobe.
Because he stole all his moves, is what he said.
He was an amazing athlete.
Identical.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But oh my gosh, we could talk about
I know.
shoes and the culture for
athletes
so
and culture.
long.
Yeah.
Because you're tapping into my passion too and what I like, so we're doing that to each other.
Yeah.
Going back to Western now. So again, you were here from 1990 to 94.
95, yeah.
To 95.
5-year plan.
5-year plan. There we go. I was on that too. Being, obviously being black and being a minority here. And being a part of BSU and that guy inviting you back to BSU, making sure that you come to those meetings.
Yep.
What was that experience like?
I loved so the town that I grew up in, there was hardly any black people at all. Like none. I mean, a small handful. So to come up to Western, and there aren't many black folks up here, but it felt good for me to be in a community where there were more people who looked like me. And I know that being involved with BSU helped mold and shape who I am too. And it helped. I made some really good friendships out of BSU. Some of my friends, we're still friends to this day. I'm really grateful for being able to have the experience that I had at Western and be connected with the people that I met through BSU and the people who I continue to connect with as time goes on. It's really great now that Ted Pratt has retired and to be able to hang out with him and talk with him. Uncle Ted, right? He's Uncle Ted. He's everybody's older brother or uncle.
Yeah.
And I don't, there's a lot of things that I think about in my experience at Western and just being here and the things that I learned. And to learn about BSU when I was in college and to be able to instill that and help my kids process and get into BSU and their school has been pretty amazing.
Yeah. And speaking of that, you formed a BSU in Whatcom Middle School.
I did.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so my son, I have 2 kids. My son just graduated 8th grade, and he's going to go to Squalicum High School.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then my daughter is going into 7th grade at Whatcom Middle School, and they had some huge problems this year with hate speech and people calling them the N-word a lot, and it was a very frustrating process for me. I spent a lot of time in the school talking to administrators, begging them to do something and saying, okay, this should be a suspension, like we have to figure it out.
Right.
So I met the assistant principal at Whatcom Middle School, really heard me. And she heard my voice. She knew what I wanted to do. She saw my frustration. She would sit quietly as I was going on my tirades about, we need to do this, 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 and this. And I'm an upset parent. And if my children are hurt, I'm hurt. And I don't want to, see any of that. So her and I were talking one day, and I said, we just need a safe place for these kids. And I would really like it if we could do something. We need a middle school BSU. And she said, I will 100% support you in that. and then we started thinking about Whatcom Middle School and having a BSU there. There's not very many black kids at Whatcom, so we decided to extend it to all of the middle schools. So we had 2 meetings, and it went really well. My kids really stepped up and invited all their friends, and we got the word out, and we handed out books, and we talked about education, and a lot of the guys from the Brothers Group came in, and I want to make connections for these kids so that they have people that look like them that they can look at that have been successful, and people like you that have graduated from Western and have been BSU at Western.
Yeah.
We also had Marcus Nixon come, and I think you know his parents.
Yes.
But he came to the BSU meeting, and he's in high school, and the middle school kids were just amazed that he was there. It was a really cool thing because they really look up to him as an athlete and a leader. So for me, just getting that established in middle school is really important this year. And when my son that went to high school, we were talking about it. He's like, well, it's too bad I'm leaving now because this would have been great. So we just got together and just talked about current issues, anything that they were going through, and let the kids know that we're a safe space and we could talk about anything. So we're working on kind of streamlining the BSU, and I want to get Bellingham schools on board with helping me get the word out, because it was just me going to the other middle schools and saying, hey, can you hang this poster up? Can we get the word out? And then my son posted it on all of his social media pages. Yeah. We got it out through the AAU community because my son plays AAU basketball. So it was probably I'm really proud of what we did with that, and I'm very excited to see where it goes. And I'm the advisor for the club, and I'm going to continue to have meetings next year and hope that it will help, because something needed to be done. I was tired of seeing my kids go through pain in middle school and having to deal with all the racism. And my kids are very vocal. They have other friends that are not vocal and didn't want to share about what had happened to them. So I just always want to provide a space that's safe for kids to be able to talk things through.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Even considering the recent event that happened to the sixth grader.
Yes.
Where and for those of you guys who didn't hear, here in Bellingham, there was a 42-year-old man that came and attacked physically and verbally a 6th grade student a few weeks back, and now he's been charged. And
he has.
I don't know if has he been sentenced yet?
He has not been sentenced. Okay. So my daughter was standing right next to the boy when he was attacked.
Wow.
So my daughter was standing there talking to him. They were kind of joking around, their friends, and as the man approached, she knew something was wrong. Yeah. She could tell. And so she said that she was talking to her friend, and then as he got closer and made his comments about, he said, that's not how you talk to white people, and then he punched him in the face. My daughter looked away the second that her friend got punched because she knew something bad was going to happen. One of the teachers came running down to track this guy down. He was trying to go after this kid after he hit him. And as they arrested him and were putting him in the back of it happened right in front of the police station. So it was caught on the police station feed.
Wow.
But as they're arresting him and putting him in the car, he's like, you're going to arrest me for punching an N-word, which elevated it to a hate crime. So it went from, he assaulted a child. It's a hate crime. There's all of these things so when my daughter called me and she was talking really fast, and I'm like, that did not happen. She's like, it did, I swear. I'm like, no, I'm coming to the school. There's no way that happened. I got to the school, found out about it. We had a BSU meeting scheduled that day. Ooh. So the boy who was attacked came to the meeting. I called his dad, and I said, is there any way he would be willing to come and talk with some of the students? At the beginning of the meeting, the students were kind of sitting there, and they didn't really want to talk. They were feeling kind of shy. And when he came in and started sharing his story, it opened up the floodgates for some of these kids to share about what had been happening to them in middle school. One student shared that he was so sick and tired of hearing the N-word, and he would go to the admin staff. It wasn't at our middle school, a different one. And he was complaining, and he was not heard at all. So then he started taking matters into his own hands and very politely was telling these other kids, please don't say that word. And then he was getting in trouble for kind of telling these kids not to say the word.
Say that word. Why was he getting in trouble for that?
Who knows? I mean, there's so many different moving parts and pieces here. Wow. And he was, he said his tone was assertive, but he wasn't doing anything wrong. He was just trying to stand up for what he believed in. So with all of these things happening, and with the child getting attacked, after that happened, I said, all right, we need to figure out what to do here. So I knew he had a hearing. So I called my friend Christina Michelle, who was the first Black female city councilwoman. I called her up and I said, this happened, and she had helped me organize people for BSU too, because we brought a lot of mentors in. Within probably 5 to 10 minutes, she had called everyone. We got a huge amount of people together to go to the first hearing, and we all crammed in this teeny tiny room in the basement of the courthouse. The mayor ended up showing up. A lot of the brothers groups showed up. It was pretty powerful, and the family was there. So after that, we got the word out even more. So for the second hearing, we were at capacity in a courtroom. He was on the monitor, but we were in the courtroom. Either Como or King 5 was there, I can't remember which, and it was intense.
Yeah.
It was the amount of support around the family. It was beautiful how many people came out to support. So then there's another hearing coming up and a sentencing, I think, coming up in August. So we'll see what happens with all of that. But, the times that we're living in, and to have this man just for no reason walk up to a child, this kid is 11 years old, and punch him in the face.
So sad.
Because he's Black. Like, for me, I've had meetings with the Bellingham Public Schools superintendent, and I'm just trying to look at different ways to protect these kids. I still want them to be able to go on walking field trips.
Yeah.
I've talked to a bunch of people about helping chaperone those so they can continue to do that, and so the kids can feel safe. There's a lot of work to do. So,
and this is part of the Black experience.
It is.
This is part of the issues that happen. And again, obviously, not all of the Black experience is like this, right? But this is just one part, one small thing that happens. It's a big thing, but one small thing of the larger experience that someone like this kid, you, me, and other Black people have faced before.
Yeah.
So
we've all had some really scary things happen to us being Black people in America. And I don't want my kids, in some ways it feels like my kids have a more difficult time than I did. And my kids are a quarter Black, so they're very passing, but the kids see me in the school, they know that I'm the mom, they put 2 and 2 together, and then they were harassing my kids, right? And my son, he just turned 15. He's 6 foot, 200 pounds. He's a big kid.
Wow.
And he's going into high school. But just the amount of the stories that he would come home with, and I'm like, this has to stop and this has to change. And the school district needs to implement, they need to get some systems in place to make it so when that happens, it should be an automatic suspension every time. Make an example so that hopefully it doesn't continue.
Yeah, absolutely. You said that your kids' experience was worse than in your time.
Yes. In a lot of ways, yes. And I talked to my mom. So my mom is white, my dad is Black. They're both born and raised St. Louis. And my mom, when I told my mom the story about the child being hit in the face, she's like, this is worse than some of the things that me and your dad went through. So I don't know what's going on in the world today. I really don't. But I feel like in some ways we've gone backwards. And we need to make sure that we're, when you're raising young Black children in America today, the conversation always needs to be open. Some kids don't want to tell their parents what's going on at school. My oldest son that's 27, he didn't want to tell me a lot because he knew I would kind of fly off the handle. My younger two, they sing like canaries. They tell me everything that happens in the district. So I feel very fortunate about that, and I want to shield and protect them. But just to hear some of the stuff and the blatant name calling and just all of it. Like, I had issues as a kid.
Yeah.
I really did. But yes, I feel like they have it worse than I did in a lot of ways.
Wow.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm such an optimistic person. I would always think like, we had the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Yep. We have legally they cannot discriminate us anymore, but it still happens.
It does. And we have to educate.
Yeah.
People need to know. A lot of people don't know that Bellingham was a sundown town. We talk about this, and I learned that Bellingham was a sundown town in a class that I took at Western. So I took the Asian American experience, and our professor told us. I remember I was taking, back in the day, you have to write your notes down. There's no computers. And I was taking notes, and I remember I dropped my pen, and I was like, and he explained the sundown town.
Yeah.
And how it worked, and you had to be out of city limits by nightfall. And so what's interesting to me is I've educated my children, and when we had our first BSU meeting, there was a couple students in the room that knew that Bellingham used to be a sundown town. They knew about all the Klan activity that happened in Whatcom County. So I think it's just the education process, and people need to know where we came from, where we're going, and we don't want to go back there. And if we start to slide down that slope, We need to gather together
Yeah.
and figure out a way to put it to a halting stop.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Beautifully said.
Thank you.
Beautifully said. I want to transition to
Yes.
your businesses.
Yes.
Your successful
Yeah.
businesses.
Yeah.
The real estate company that you do, as well as the Muljat.
Yes. So
Muljat.
the Muljat Group is
Did I say it correctly?
Muljat Group is our
Okay.
real estate company.
Tell us a little bit about how you got into those ventures.
Okay, so I started at Muljat Group in 2003. My ex-husband was a developer, and so I met him when I was still at Western. So I started working at his office in 1994, and I was helping answer phones. I was a property manager. I was a real estate assistant. I did a lot of different things, marketing coordinator. I did a lot of things for the office, and I was at the time managing like 350 to 400 units as a property manager. So when we got divorced, I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I knew that I loved real estate, but I had never sold real estate on my own. I'd always been an assistant, and I honestly at that time didn't think I could ever be anything other than an assistant. I'm like, this is just where I'm going to be. So I decided when I was working with my ex-husband, since he was a developer and a builder, I could sit open houses for him. I didn't have to be licensed because I was doing builder direct open houses. So when we got divorced, I was like, okay, I think I'm going to get my real estate license and just see how it goes. So I enrolled in a real estate class, and Frank Muljat, who is the previous owner of Muljat Group, came to speak to our class. And he stands in front of the whole class, and he's talking about real estate, and he said, you know, I'm not here to hold anybody's hand. If you are driven, passionate about real estate, and have had some experience in real estate and can learn without me having to just babysit you all, call me. This is what I'm looking for. And everybody in the room was like looking around like, I'm not calling that guy.
Right.
I called him at 7:30 the next morning, scheduled a meeting. I went in and met with him. I was really nervous, very nervous. And the Muljat Group, I had heard about the Muljat Group. I didn't know a lot about it, but I knew that it was a real estate firm in Bellingham. Yeah. And I sat in my meeting with him. And the way real estate works is you either have a split of your commission or you pay a desk fee. And the desk fee means you pay the firm a certain amount of money per month, and then you don't pay anything else. You don't give any splits off of your commission packages.
Gotcha.
So when I started at Muljat Group, they didn't have a split option. Right. You had to pay a desk fee. And what that meant was every month you had to write a check to the Muljat Group for $1,000 to be able to have your license there.
From your own money?
From your own money. Even if you're not selling anything,
you're still paying that $1,000. Yeah.
So I interviewed with him, and when he told me about how it worked and fees, I was just deflated. So I said, thank you for your time, Mr. Muljat. I'll get back to you. The next day I was like, I got to try something else. I can't do this. It's not going to work. He called me up and he said, so are you coming to work? And I said, I'm sorry, I can't. And he said, well, why not? And I said, I'm a single mom. I can't afford to pay $1,000 a month for a desk fee. And he's like, well, come back in. I want to talk to you. Come into the office. So I went into the office and he said, I'm very confident in your abilities. I think you're going to sell right away. And I was like, I'm not. I don't know what you're talking about. And he said, I will let you stay in my office for 1 year and you don't have to pay me a dime. You can stay here for 1 year for free. No money paid in. And I was like, okay. And he said, but if you start selling, then you need to start paying me. And I was like, no problem. I didn't think I was going to sell anything. So 45 days later, I closed my first transaction. And then I started closing deals. And then I was able to stay there and pay my desk fee and then some. Man. And the 2003, 2004 real estate market was very hot. And so it was a time for me. It was an amazing time. I was like, okay, I'm learning the industry from a sales perspective. Frank was a great mentor. And then I just kind of continued on. And then Frank would ask me to help train new brokers when they came in. If brokers called to interview to find out about our company, would have them call me to tell them, why don't you call Kena? She'll tell you about Muljat Group.
Pretty much.
So then he started to ask me, he would go away on vacation and he would ask me to run the office meetings. And I'm like, I cannot do that. I can't talk in front of people. It's not going to happen. Too shy. And he's like, you can do it. You're fine. So I started covering office meetings for him. And I remember just sweating bullets sitting at this table. And I was one of the younger brokers at the time. And there was a lot of experience in the room. So as time progressed, I was covering for him. I was training for him. And then in 2017, he decided to sell the business to his son, who is probably one of the most successful commercial real estate brokers in Washington State.
Wow.
He sold the business to him. And then his son, Troy, came to me and wanted me to be the manager and the designated broker of the company. And I'm like, nope. And so he'd come by my office, are you sure? I'm like, nope. And he's like, why not? I'm like, nope, I'm not doing it. I do not want to be a manager. I do not want to be a designated broker. And then we talked it through a little bit more, and he's like, you're basically already doing this. You're helping train people. You know, people come to you for advice. You're a leader here. You should do it. And I was like, fine. So at that time, I stepped up as the designated broker of our firm. So what that meant was, you know, DOL compliance, you know, making sure the files were correct and hiring people and kind of, you know, running the day-to-day of the business. And then I had all of these ideas and changes that I wanted to make. And historically, Muljat Group, it's pretty well known. It was the good old boy network, right? So I was one of the few, in the beginning, I was one of the few women of color there, if not the only. And but everybody always treated me very well. And Frank Muljat was like a dad to me. So years down the road, I kept going to Troy, the owner. I'm like, I want to do this. I want to do this. And I was very excited. And finally, one day, he's like, it's time. I'm like, time for what? He's like, it's time for you to own the business. And I was like, what? It wasn't expecting it, right? So my good friend Peter On, who was one of the people that Frank Muljat had call me when he was new at Muljat Group, dear friend, our families are tight. He had just retired from the Air Force, and he was looking for something different to do. So I talked to him, and I said, there's an opportunity here for us. And there was no one in the world that I would have picked for a business partner other than Peter. So fast forward to now, it's been about a year and a half, 2 years, and everything has been above and beyond what I ever pictured. Peter is an incredible business partner. He's an engineer, graduated from Western with an engineering degree. Yep. And so he likes to take difficult things head on. So he loves numbers and bookkeeping. No, not me, not so much. I want to be training people, helping them build their businesses, kissing the babies. You know, that's where I want to be. So it's really great. And so we have a great partnership. And fast forward to today, and we're the first truly, you know, minority female veteran-owned firm in the area.
Wow, shout out to y'all.
Shout
out to y'all. And I like the balance that you guys said, because, you know, you're kind of the face of the group, you know, kissing babies, you know what I mean, and kind of out there, and then he's behind the scenes crunching the numbers and doing all that.
He's great, and I continue to run office meetings, and he contributes, and we kind of go back and forth. We make all of the daily decisions together, and it's awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. And where can people find your businesses, those living in Bellingham?
So we're at 510 Lakeway Drive, and we're the Muljat Group. We are a great locally owned real estate company. We firmly believe in fostering relationships. It's not just all about the sale. A lot of my clients that I'm working with today, I've been working with my entire real estate career. I just sold a home for someone that I met through the real estate industry before my oldest son was born. I think I've known them for about 29 years, and I just sold another home for them. So it's just, we just do things a little bit differently. I used to say that we're like the Nordstrom of real estate offices. And we pride ourselves on our reputation and just, you know, being involved with the community. We now have a partnership with Western. So we are Western Washington's universities. So we have a partnership with them. So with the foundation. So essentially, we're the go-to real estate office for Western. So incoming professors, students, faculty, staff, if they're looking for any real estate services, Western refers them to us. And then we donate kind of a portion. So we take the commission to our office, and then our firm donates a portion of that back to the foundation. And that money goes to scholarships for people with housing insecurity, single parents, student athletes.
Yeah.
And we actually just closed our first transaction, and we're going to be writing a check back to the Alumni Association and the foundation. We're really excited about that. That just happened at the end of last week.
Man.
Yeah.
You guys are killing the game.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, seriously. Well, as you guys heard, any kind of real estate, you know, business that you guys want to do, you know, hit up Kena Brashear. So
yes,
she's the person to hit it up. Let's talk about a little bit about family. Because you mentioned your kids several times during the podcast.
Yeah.
Tell me, what is it? First of all, what is it like being a mom of 5 kids? But then also, like, what are the joys that come with that?
So being a parent is one of the most rewarding things. You don't know true love until you have a child, people talk about, oh, I'm in love, you know, my husband, I love. You don't know true love until you have a child, and that is your true love, right? Being a parent can be very challenging, but it also can be very rewarding. My why in life is my children. Like, I am really big on family experiences, family trips, just us being together, cooking together. I love to cook. And they are the most important people in my life. And I love them all. So my oldest is 27, and his name is Adric, and he works with me at Muljat Group. He went to Western. He got accepted at Western. He was at Western for basically a quarter, and he called me up, and he always wanted to be a real estate broker. When he was 8 years old, he did a PowerPoint presentation in elementary school about being a real estate broker. So he really wanted to do it. He felt a lot of pressure to go to college, and I didn't pressure him. I'm like, you do what you want to do. He called me up. He's like, I love Western. It's wonderful here, but I would just want to get to work. So he got licensed at 18 in real estate, bought a house on the south side. He walked to Fairhaven.
Bought a house at 18?
18.
Man.
Yeah, on an owner contract, which means that the owners carried the contract. There wasn't a bank involved at the time.
Wow.
So I'm very proud of him. So he's been licensed for 8 years now, and he's my business partner. We work together quite a bit, you know, and we take family vacations sometimes, and we're fortunate enough to have other people in the office that can help us cover our business when we go. But I'm super proud of him and everything that he's done, and I love that he kind of followed in the family footsteps. I have another daughter named Savannah. She's 23. She has epilepsy, and she also has a huge developmental delay, and so she will never live on her own. She had 75 seizures before the age of 3. We couldn't quite get it figured out. Now she's on medication. She's doing really great. But she's always singing, always dancing. She's an absolute riot. She's 23. And then I have a son who just turned 18. He's old for his grade, though. He's a June birthday, so he will be a senior this year. He's going to Running Start, so he'll have his AA and
there we go.
Be done. Yeah, so we'll
Good
see
for
what
him.
he does. Yeah, it's been great. And then his name is Anthony. And then my other son is Vincent. He's going to be a freshman at Squalicum. He plays football, basketball, and he also shares my love of shoes. He's also a shoe guy.
He's a shoe head too?
Yeah. My oldest son loves shoes. My 15-year-old son loves shoes. My daughter, my 12-year-old, she's the baby. She's 12. She, just bought her skateboard the other day. She likes to skateboard. She likes basketball. She's a little tomboy. She's a force. She has all the confidence in the world. I mean, this girl, she's something. And she's the, a lot of people are like, she doesn't look anything like, she looks exactly like me, except for she is the lightest of all of my children, and she has green eyes. So,
wow.
But she's awesome, and she's starting to get into shoes too.
Yeah.
So we all have a shoe problem.
It's a good problem.
It's a good problem.
It's a good problem. Mm-hmm. Do you think her confidence comes from you and her personality?
I think so. I tell her that I wish that I would have had her confidence that she had when I was her age. I was so painfully shy and kind of gangly, and she just is a boss. She doesn't, she's something. I love it. I love her. And I do think that that's a lot of me supporting her in what she does.
Yeah.
And just kind of remember where you came from, remember who you are, remember to be true to yourself, and always be unapologetically you. I tell my kids that all the time. Like, you be you, and I'll support you in that. And come to me if you need anything.
That's a beautiful message, because there will never be another person like you, exactly, with your your fingerprint, you know what I mean? Like, how unique you are. Even if you have a twin, like, y'all are still different a little bit.
That's right. Yeah.
I personally, so I'm the oldest of 4.
Okay, yeah.
And
big
so
family too.
there's a lot of pressure that comes with that.
Being the oldest is hard.
It's hard. Like, it has a lot of benefits, right? But you're also kind of the guinea pig of the kids. So
that's
you're kind of the test dummy.
Yep.
So it kind of pains me sometimes seeing the way my parents treat my youngest sibling. I'm like, I would have never gone away with that.
My son says that all the time. He's like, you gotten soft. I'm like, I've not gotten soft. No, I'm not soft. It's just that things were different back then. He was telling me something. He's like, they have iPhones. I didn't have it. I'm like, they did not have the iPhone. That was a different generation.
No. I'm the same way with your son. I'm like, it just seems like, man, our parents are really.
Who are you?
I guess the kids really beat them down.
That's right. I tell them all the time, though. I'm like, I was 25 when I had my oldest, 40 when I had my youngest. So. Wow. Getting older, right?
Yeah.
Things change.
Things change, absolutely.
Thanks for paving the way, you oldest kids.
No, we did what we had to do. So Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kena, we're nearing the end,
Mm-hmm.
but before I kind of end the podcast, I want to touch on something that I said in the intro that I just learned
Mm-hmm.
right before we started the podcast. I mean, you are a breast cancer survivor.
Yeah.
First of all, big ups, big props to you for that. That is
Thank you.
incredible. If you can a little bit, just share us a little bit about what that journey was for you.
So when I was 43 years old, I just went in for a routine mammogram, and it took a little longer than normal, and I knew something was up. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have any lumps or bumps or anything, no symptoms at all. So they called me back in to come in for a second one, and when I saw the image, the way they explained it to me, white is not good on the image when you're looking at your mammogram, and there was a lot of white. It's just white dots everywhere. So I went from. So coincidentally, when all of this happened, my oldest son had just decided that he was going to leave Western and move back home until he could find another place to live and buy
Okay.
a house. So he left Western at the end of December, and I got diagnosed right around that time. So, and it was a really hard time. My my kids were of the ages that it was difficult. So when I got diagnosed, my doctor called me and told me, and my son, who's now 18, was at home. He was sick that day, and we were just kind of sitting around visiting. And they called me, and I almost blacked out when they told me what had happened. And my oldest son, came home, and of course he's Googling everything. And originally they thought that my cancer was contained in my ducts, which is called, so it's way easier to treat. And he's like, "Mom, it's going to be a cakewalk. You're going to be fine." And I was a little bit of a wreck. I was very nervous. So then moving forward, Bellingham just happens to have one of the top breast surgeons in the country here in Bellingham.
Wow.
He moved here from California to kind of get out of the big city life. I had a consultation with him, and he said, "Well, unfortunately, we'll go in and see what we're dealing with, and hopefully it's not in a lymph node, and we'll see how it goes." And that's how they stage your cancer. If it's kind of escaped and got into a lymph node,
Right.
it's different stages. So I don't do well with anesthesia. I don't do well with medication. So they had to give me anti-nausea, and then they did like the little patch they put behind people's ears when they go on a cruise ship. And my whole family was there. My dad, and my aunts, and my mom, and my uncles, and everybody. And when I woke up, they said, so it had one of your lymph nodes was really bad. A couple of them, the cancer had spread to a lymph node. So that put me at stage 3. So I went to get a consultation here in Bellingham, and when I met with them here at the cancer center, they said, "Okay, you're stage 3. We might want to do radiation, but that's it. You'll probably be fine." I'm like, "Great." And I went and told my mom, was like, "Nope, you're going to Seattle. You are going to Seattle Cancer Care. They're one of the top cancer care treatment facilities, in the United States, in the nation. They're up there." And I was like, "Fine." So I went there, and I'm glad that I did, because when I went to Seattle Cancer Care, they said, "Because of your age, you have to get chemo. You have to go on an estrogen blocker," because my cancer was estrogen positive, which means estrogen was feeding my cancer and making it grow.
Oh, wow.
So I had my surgery February 4th and started treatment in March. So I would drive. I had someone drive me to Seattle Cancer Care every Friday. So I had weekly treatments.
Mm-hmm.
One of my kids, so a local, she's a friend of mine, and she also taught 4 of my kids. She had 4 of them in her class. She's off for the summertime, and she was like, "I'm going to come to your house every Friday, and I'm going to take care of your kids." And she knew that I couldn't eat when I got back. I could eat rice and maybe drink water and a couple things. So it was just like a true gift. And I also had a meal train that was set up, and we had 75 meals delivered to our house. And the real estate community is pretty. See, I'm telling you, I'm starting to well up. Sorry. The real estate community is great here. We all take care of each other. So when I got diagnosed, one of my friends was like, "We're doing the meal train." So they did the meal train, and my kids would just go running to the door to see who it was, right? And then people would bring food, and a couple of people showed up to take my kids to the movies, and just trying to keep people busy. And it was a difficult time, and I was really sick. I would have days that I would go through treatment. I'd come home, I'd sleep all day, sleep for a couple days, and then I'd be fine by treatment on Friday. Sometimes I'd be fine by Sunday, sometimes it would be Tuesday, but you just never knew what the day would bring. So I continued to work, and I was trying to kind of stay focused. And then there was that, I had to go through a huge shift with myself about not worrying about the cancer coming back, because in my mind, I'm like, here's the mindset. If you're telling yourself the cancer, oh no, the cancer's going to come back. What do I do? What do I do? It's going to come back, right? So I had to kind of reshape the way I thought and the way my mind worked, and said to myself, okay, I have to focus on the positive, do everything I can to be healthy, you know, and I've always eaten pretty healthy. And so I shifted all of that. And I can tell you to this day, I'm not in a space of fear that my cancer is going to come back. I'm probably in the best place I've ever been. And it has a lot to do with the love and the support that were around me when I was sick. It's amazing how just people that I did not even know that were friends of friends were bringing food to my house, full meals, and just.
Wow.
And when I was down in Seattle getting treatment, they would go and visit with my kids, and have dinner with my kids, and it was a scary time, but I'm just so grateful to be on the other side of it. It's been 8 years now. I'm off of all my medications, and I feel really good and just grateful to be alive.
Yeah, yeah. And what an inspiration to women that either have had or have breast cancer that are listening to this too, because that is a true inspiration. And thank God you're okay. And thank God you beat that. And what, like, that's so, like, incredible. Like, you were able to shift your mindset, because honestly, like, that's tough. And most people probably won't have that ability, because they're so like, man, I have this disease, I have this cancer, and this might be it for me.
I don't know, you know, how I was able to do it, because I grew up being a warrior. You know, I was worried about, and this and that, and wasn't really good at drawing boundaries with people, and I just wasn't very strong. And then there's a huge shift that happened. And if you ask anybody who's had cancer that's a survivor, they'll probably tell you that getting cancer was one of the best things that has happened to them, because you have a huge mind shift. Your life completely changes. It's like having a second lease on life, right? You have another chance.
Right.
And I've really committed to meeting with women that have been diagnosed with cancer. And I've met with lots of women in our community, and I've met with women via Zoom, and I'm in a bunch of breast cancer awareness support groups, and just giving back to those who, there's a couple women that I've met with days after they've been diagnosed, because it's scary. I mean, you don't know what it's like until you can talk to someone. I've had women ask me the craziest questions, and I'm like, I am completely transparent. Anything you ask me, I'll tell you. And I've gone on walks with women that have just completed treatment, walks with women that are just about ready to go in to have mastectomies. And to me, I feel like I need to give back in that way, and to let people know what it's like, and to be on the other side of it is amazing. And it's all about, mindset is huge.
Mindset is very huge.
I'm a big law of attraction person. What you put out there, you're going to get back, right? I love to make vision boards and kind of, I'm really into it. And what you feed grows.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So.
I have literally in my room, I have like a quote of the day kind of board, where I like write a quote of the day. If I have like a goal or something like that, I write it out. And, every Sunday, particularly with the podcast too, I kind of make like a, what's your next move type of checklist of like, okay, let's check in where we are right now. Who's my next guest, kind of, and just, it's very important to write it down. Like when you see your goal, it makes it that much real.
It's important, and gratitude lists are important. I've started them in my phone. And sometimes when I'm writing my gratitude list, if it's sunrise or something, I just take a picture of the sunrise and I put it digitally into my list. It's not the days of handwriting anymore. I can keep it. And then I'll go back and look at some of my lists from when I first got my iPhone, because they're still stored in my phone. And it's amazing to think about where you were, where you are now. Life is short and fragile.
Yeah.
And you have to live it to the fullest.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't know.
Beautifully put. Well, Kena, to wrap it up, from all that we've shared and from all that we've gotten from your experience and all the fun shoe game talk and everything that we talked about, what advice would you give to the younger generation today?
I would give them the same advice that I give my kids. Always be true to who you are. Be unapologetically you. Use your voice. Stand up for yourself. I mean, and young kids that are in school and that are struggling with anything that has to do with racism or being bullied or picked on, you have to talk. You have to find someone who's safe for you to talk to. and live in the moment. You know, I'm not talking going out and gambling thousands and thousands of dollars, but live in your moment. Give yourself that time, self-care, time with friends, time with family. I mean, my family, we try to have a family dinner once a week if we can, and just all of us being together.
Yeah.
I mean, life, like I said before, is fragile and short, and just be who you are and be true to yourself and just be.
Just be.
Yeah.
Just be. Y'all heard her. Thank you so much, Kena.
Thank you.
Appreciate it so much. Hope y'all
Thank you.
enjoyed this awesome episode. Y'all, stay tuned as more episodes are rolling in the Black Experience. And I hope you guys are hearing these things and implementing them in your life. But enjoy the rest of your summer. Until next time, guys. Peace. What's up, y'all? Thank you so much for tuning into that video. Make sure to click that subscribe button down below as well as that bell to get notified on every new video and short coming in the future. And check out the description down below to get links to my podcast that is now featured on both Apple Podcasts, Spotify, this YouTube channel, and my Instagram down below. And as always, until next time, guys, peace.